Hi everybody, Fred the Pirate here, and I'm here to do a review of Game of Thrones, Season 3, Episode 9, entitled, The Reigns of Castamere. So yeah, definitely a really exciting episode. So obviously, as you have probably noticed, I am not recording from my usual place. So for this episode, I'm actually using a laptop to record this. So hopefully the video and sound quality aren't too bad. But the reason why I'm using a laptop to record this is because I was having some technical issues with my regular computer, so yeah, I had to use a laptop. So hopefully I can get my regular computer fixed and get things back on board. Although if you like me recording from the laptop, I can probably keep doing this. So obviously, to get back to the episode, and because I don't think you guys really care that much about my computer issues, so yeah, definitely a really exciting episode, and a lot really happened. So obviously, we start off this episode, pretty much recapping everything that happened, with, the White Walker's last episode, and, everything that happened with that. So, I believe we start, with Sam and Gilly, and they're in the forest, and so I think we meet them where they meet the wall, and I think Gilly talks about how her father mentions that there hasn't been a White Walker who laid eyes on the wall without getting killed. So I think we start out with them, and then I think very quickly after that, we move to a meeting with, obviously, Robb and Lord Frey, and and they're kind of talking about stuff, and they're getting, Lord Frey's kind of marched out all of his daughters and his granddaughters, and he's talking to Robb about, how he slighted his daughters, and Robb apologizes, and while that's happening, Lord Frey's looking over Talisa, and he's making a lot of derogatory remarks about Talisa, and and Robb's getting super pissed, but luckily Catelyn's there, and she's like, hold your horses, don't want to freak out, because obviously they are at Lord Frey's mercy because they need him for the soldiers. And I think right before that happened, I think a little bit before the Gilly thing, since I just remembered it, we have this meeting in the tent with Robb and Catelyn, where Robb's talking about like his military plans, and so he's showing this to Catelyn, and he kind of wants to get Catelyn's thoughts on his plans to take Castle Rock, and she's like, pretty much go for it. And so that pretty much is what happens in the early parts of the episode. I think right after that we get a scene with Daenerys, and she's talking with Jorah and Grey Worm and the new guy, which I think is named Dora, like Doris, I believe his name is. And so it's obvious that like Daenerys kind of has a thing for him. So they're making the plans on how to get in to the Yunkai, into how to sack the city. So the new guy, Doran, it says, I know a way to get into the city through the back, and the guards know me, so they'll let me in. And so we'll just sneak in there, we'll kill a couple of guards, and then we'll open up the front gates, and then we'll let all the other Unsullied come in there. And so we'll sack the city like no problem. And so pretty much that's what we get with them. We get a couple scenes with Jon in the Wildlands, where they're about to take over this horse farm. And So they're about to raid that, and it just so happens at the same time we're getting a scene with Bran and Rickon along with their two compatriots, with Jojen and his sister, and with Osha and Hodor. So it turns out that since the storm's about to happen, that Bran and his party are staying in this well, it looks like a windmill, and so they're staying in there right when the storm happens. And it just so happens, quite serendipitously, that Jon and the wildlings he with happen to be raiding this area where they're at. And so the wildlings, they kind of want to have Jon kill the horse guy because he kind of manages to escape real quick. And I think it's mostly because there's a scene where when they're running to sack the farm, that Jon takes a sword and he hits it on a rock real quick, and he does it really subtly where you wouldn't notice it, but it's kind of a sloppy move, and I think it's a lot more sloppy of a move than somebody with Jon's skill level would do normally, so it's obvious that he kind of did it on purpose. And so this gives the horse guy enough time to get out of the way, but it turns out that he runs to the farm where Bran and his colleagues are. And so, you know, Jon and Rickon and Bran are this close to meeting each other, and it's just this close. And so it's just ironic how that happened, although obviously it's not that, but it's just like they were so close. And obviously besides that, there was a couple moments where, you know, people were real close to meeting each other, you know, as far as the Starks go. And so it turns out that pretty much when this is happening, because the horse guy has ended up running across the windmill that Brandon Rickon's at, and there's a thunderstorm happening, that Hodor's in there, and he's kind of freaking out because of the thunderstorm, and he's about to give away their position. So Bran ends up using his magic powers to go into Hodor's mind and calm him down. And Jojen's like, you know, you could use your powers to get into the dire wolves and protect us from the wildlings, because like they kind of suspect that we're there, and if we kind of kill them off, then, you know, we can get out of here quickly. And while this is happening, obviously Jon's the wildlings obviously suspect him, and Jon has a lot of trouble killing the horse guy because he isn't comfortable with doing it. And this ends up giving him away, and so he ends up having to fight the wildlings at the same time. And so he manages to escape. Ygritte initially helps him, but like I think Jon kind of like he like knocks her down, and like the red-haired bearded guy kind of picks Ygritte up, and at first she's struggling, but Jon manages to get out of there, and he ends up escaping. And so the wildlings go about their way, and it looks initially like Jon's betrayed Ygritte, and Ygritte is super pissed about this. And so honestly, I'm wondering, I'm definitely interested to see obviously the next episode, and obviously next season, you know, exactly what's going to go down with that. Because I don't know if he actually betrayed her, or if he made it look like he betrayed her, because obviously, you know, it's going to be hard enough for him to get back where he needs to be without Ygritte there. So, you know, he might have done that for her, so that'd be interesting. But anyway, that was really cool, a very actiony moment. It was really cool seeing Jon fight the wildlings. It was definitely really cool to see Bran exercise his warg powers to that extent. And I think we find out after things cool down that Jojen lets Bran know that there hasn't ever been a warg who had the ability to enter the mind of another person. So Bran's really entering some new magic territory, and so that's definitely really cool. So I think right about after that happens, we get a scene with Arya and Sandor the Hound, And so they run across this guy whose cart's busted, and it turns out he's like a pig farmer. And so the Hound tries to help out this guy with his cart so he can steal his cart. And initially he plans to kill the guy, but Arya tells them, don't kill him, because Sandra was like, you're too nice. And right about when this happens, the guy starts to wake up, but Arya like knocks him in the head with the brick. And I think at the same time when this is happening, when she's convincing the Hound not to kill this pig farmer guy just to steal his cart, that she mentions that she's met a real killer, and that that she gives a Hound shit about the people she kills. Like, you can kill young kids and you can kill young guys, but like old guys, but it's like, I knew a real killer, and it's like, and I knew somebody who would make you just look like nothing. And so, and he's like, and so he points to the pig farmer guy and is like, is that it? It's like, no. And so, like, and so it was kind of fun getting to see the Hound and Arya give each other shit. And I think that there was another season where, scene in the show where they kind of give each other shit. So it's kind of fun watching them interact, because they definitely, like, there's definitely kind of a lot of animosity between them, and so I think both of them like have no issue giving each other shit, which is really fun. And they do it in such an entertaining way that it's just really fun to watch. Yeah, so that's pretty much, we get that, and I think right after we get the Arya scene with Hound, we get another scene with, obviously, with Jorah and Grey Worm, where they finally get into the city, and so, the Jorah's guy, he says, I'm going to go in here, when the coast is clear, I'm going to whistle, and I'm like super awesome at whistling. And so he managed to do that, but it turns out that there's a whole bunch of fucking guards. And so we get another really cool action scene, where we finally get to see Jorah in action, we get to see Grey Worm in action, and we get to see the new guy, Jorah's, in action. We get to see them kill a whole bunch of guards, and that was really fun. Because I don't believe we've ever really seen a lot of Jorah in action, so it was, it was really cool to see that, he's not just, a slaver, and he's not just kind of a noble, that, like, he knows how to do what he needs to do. I mean, because honestly, like, Jorah's kind of in the company of some pretty badass people, so it's kind of nice to see that, he can hold his own. So that was definitely a really cool scene. Then right after that, we get the scene with Arya and the Hound, where they're right by where the Frey's the castle is, and so Arya's kind of freaking out, because like the way that the Hound has to do it, like, he needs to make it convincing that they're a pig farmer, because he kind of can't just stroll in there and say, I got Arya Stark, because like could go down. So like, he needs to find a way to get in them and get her directly to Robb and Catelyn without a lot of stuff. So they're kind of waiting out, and like, and she's getting kind of freaked out, and they end up having a very interesting conversation about fear, and about, like he says, like, you're getting more scared because you're so close, and that makes the fear more real and more tangible, because you're near what you want, and it's so real and so tangible. And so, and Arya gives him shit. It's like, I know what makes you afraid. And she talks about his fight with the Brothers Without Borders, and how he freaked out about fire. And she's like, I know what happened to your face. And so they have another scene where they go back and forth. And Arya has a really great moment where she says, one day I'm going to put a sword through your eye, which is like, and honestly, it's kind of just fun to watch Arya just like not fuck around. Like, she's like, and she tells him point blank, it's like, I'm going to put a sword through your eye and out the back of your head someday. Like, it's like, I'm going to kill you someday, and it's like, I'm not fucking around. And it's like, I think it was fun because, like, the Hound, like, you can tell when you look at his face, after she says it's like that, he knows she's not fucking around. And you can kind of tell he's a little surprised by that. But, you know, so that was definitely a really interesting scene. I believe right after that, we get a scene, obviously, another scene where we get back to Daenerys. And she's kind of getting concerned about it taking Jorah and Grey Worm and Dorez a long time. And so she's talking to her Queen's Guard, and she's like, is it supposed to take this long? And he's like, well, it depends. And so right as this happened, they come back, and Jorah just covered in blood and soot. And then Grey Worm comes back, and then lastly, Dorez comes back, and he presents her with this cloth with this picture of a lady on there. I guess it was more of a shroud with a lady on there, but he presents it to her, and it turns out that Jorah tells us that they have successfully sacked the city. So Daenerys has sacked 2 cities. So Daenerys is definitely on a roll. So that is definitely going to be cool to see how what Daenerys does and how stuff works out for her. So that's definitely going to be fun to watch next episode and next season. Because obviously we only have one more episode left this season. Alright, so then pretty much after that, for the rest of the episode, we deal pretty much exclusively with the wedding between Robb's uncle and one of the Frey girls. And so we get to see the wedding, and we get to see the festivities, and we go through the partying and the drinking. And it turns out that Robb's uncle, it turns out Rosalind Frey, who's the girl Robb's uncle is going to marry, and who I think Robb would have married, is really attractive. So she is not, in fairness, a lot of the Frey girls happen to be a little bit on the homely side, but Rosalind is really hot. So I guess it turns out that Walder Frey, he was really saving, the best for last. He was, I think, honestly, it seems like from based on what we know, I think he might have tried to pull like a bait and switch with Catelyn by showing her the ugliest of his daughters or granddaughters, just to test the deals that Robb made. And obviously Robb messed up. So his uncle gets to marry a really attractive Frey girl, and so then they party and they have pretty cool scenes. Stuff seems to be going real well. And so then they do the bedding ceremony. So we actually get to see what a bedding ceremony looks like with the weddings. Because obviously we didn't get to see one with Tyrion and Sansa, because it's it would kind of just be weird to watch, because essentially the bedding ceremony is where the bride and groom are carried off, and and people watch them have sex. So it's and Talisa mentions that it's a really odd ceremony. And Robb was like, well, it's a tradition, and it's just, it just seems odd to you because, you're from a different culture. And I have to say, I agree with Talisa. This seems like a really, intrusive ceremony. And obviously, Lord Bolton's at the wedding ceremony. And obviously, we know what Lord Bolton did, with that, as far as giving Jaime up. So Lord Bolton's there, and he's chatting up Catelyn. And so, Catelyn, when she's talking to Lord Bolton, and he asked her, well, did you and Ned do a bedding ceremony after her brother left? And she's like, no, because Ned said, he couldn't do that because he didn't want to break a guy's jaw on their wedding night. So Ned and Catelyn did not have a bedding ceremony. So, yeah, it seems like this honestly seems like a very intrusive ceremony. Maybe it should be kind of dialed down, because it just seems really intrusive. So yeah, right after that happens, we get a scene where the hall that everybody had been feasting in kind of clears out, and then two of the Frey guys, they end up closing the doors to the hall, and then some ominous music starts playing, and we start realizing shit started to go down, and shit goes down. So pretty much what happens is Lord Frey traps everybody in the hall, and essentially he just used the wedding as a trap to lure in Robb and Talisa and Catelyn and all of Robb's soldiers back to his house so he could have all of his boys kill them. And that's essentially what happens. First he starts out by having someone go up to Talisa and stab her stomach, and so she ends up bleeding to death. And obviously then they start having these guys with crossbows up towards the balcony shoot Robb. So they just, like, Walter Frey and and all of his men, they just go ham on Robb's forces. And it turns out, right at this moment, the Hound tries to go in there with Arya. He tries to cross the bridge and get into the castle, but Lord Frey's, because he says he's a pig farmer and he has to give pigs to the wedding ceremony, and so the guys turn him away and when this is happening, so we know shit's going down. So right at this moment, Arya kind of escapes from the Hound, and she's kind of scouting shit out to see what's happening, and she starts realizing how old shit of a moment it is. So they end up trapping Robb's dire wolf in there, and and eventually some of the Frey guys end up killing the dire wolf. They end up killing Robb, and in fact Lord Bolton is the one who killed Robb, and he says, "I send you my regards for the Lannisters." And I think honestly, Lord Bolton actually finds a very subtle way to let Catelyn know shit's going down, because when she pats his arm, she moves some cloth and she sees chainmail under there, so it's obvious shit's going down. But right when that happens, Catelyn ends up finding Lord Frey's wife hiding on the table, and she grabs her, and she holds a knife up to her neck, and she tells Walter Frey, if you let us go, if you let Robb go, because at this point Talisa has bled to death and she's dead. And she's Robb's still alive, but he's got a couple arrows in him, and she's telling him, if you let us go, it's we will not seek revenge. We'll let this be, because she understands what happened. She understands one of the reasons why he's killing all of them is because they betrayed an oath. And so Lord Frey's I'm not going to take it. She says, I swear on the gods old and new that if you just let us go, that nothing will happen. And he's fuck that. It's you guys already gave me an oath. You said you were going to marry, Robb was going to marry one of my daughters, and that shit didn't happen. So it's fuck you guys. And so she tells him, well, if you don't let me go, I'm going to slit your wife's throat. And she says, I swear on my honor as a Tully and a Stark that I will slit your wife's throat if you do not let me and Robb go. And, well, it was mostly Robb. She said, you can keep me as a hostage, but let Robb go because he's my first son. And he says, I can get a new wife. And she's fuck it, I'll get a new one. And it's and so Lord Bolton, like I said, he comes up, and he's the one who killed Robb, and he stabs him through the heart. And then Catelyn slits Lord Frey's wife's throat like she said she would, because Catelyn is a woman of her word. And so right after that happens, I believe Lord Bolton is the one who also comes up and slits her throat. But right before they happen, we have just this moment where you can just see Catelyn's just she's alive, but her soul just died. It's just everything drained out of her. She's just gone. And then they just slit her throat. And that's how the episode ended. So yeah, so as far as I can tell, Robb is dead, Talisa's dead, I'm assuming his uncle and his great uncle is dead. Yeah, I think right after that happens, so we get obviously Catelyn's dead. And as far as Arya goes, the Hound ends up finding her running around real quick, and he knocks her out, and he takes her away. So I don't know what's going to happen with the Hound or Arya, but pretty much yeah, I have to say at this time, you know, you might as well put a fork in the Starks, at least as far as, because like they're done, like the war is over on their end. So pretty much, I think at this point, it's just between Stannis and the Lannisters. Like that's pretty much where shit is, because it's like the Starks are gone. It's like the North has fallen. And I imagine it's gonna, and I think it's only gonna be split between, well honestly I know like they mentioned the Greyjoys are all over, so pretty much I think the North, essentially because, the Starks are gone, like I think either it's gonna go to Mance Rayder or it's gonna go to Balin, you know, so it'll be interesting to see who takes over the North now that, you know, the Starks are pretty much down for the count, so yeah, that was amazing. So pretty much, yeah, we lost one of the Stark pups, and for right now, it looks like we've lost, like we've lost a lot of people like that, but the Starks are gone. So, yeah, that was just super surprising, and it was just a really, I have to say, a really great episode. Obviously, the 9th episodes in the seasons, with Game of Thrones are usually the most action-packed, so I'm really interested and seeing how they wrap things up with the next episode, which will be the final episode of season 3. Because obviously I'm kind of interested in seeing how the realms react to this. Because this is amazing. So, yeah, this was a really amazing episode. Really action-packed. A lot of cool stuff happened. A lot of not so cool stuff happened. Because honestly, I don't want to see Robert Catelyn die, so can't believe it. Alright, but definitely looking forward to next week's episode, and obviously, in which will wrap up season 3, and that'll mean we'll have to wait another year until season 4 happens, so, yeah, I can't wait to see what happens with that. So with that said, I'd love to hear your guys' opinion on this week's episode. So comment, rate, and subscribe. Make sure when you comment that there aren't any spoilers, because I'm not a book reader. I just watch the TV show. So, you know, don't spoil anything that happens, that's going to happen later, because that wouldn't be cool. So with that said, like I said, comment, rate, and subscribe. And this has been a review of Game of Thrones Season 3, Episode 9. And I'll see you guys again next time.